Hey everyone, John here from the Deers Embroidery Legacy, and today we're going to put 3 different effects all into one design using a Flexi-Fill font. We're going to do an applique with a faux chenille effect and a 3D border, so you're not going to want to miss this. Stay tuned. Now the first thing we're going to do is choose a friendly font, and by friendly I mean a Flexi-Fill, because our ESA Flexi Fill fonts are actually defined by one stitch direction. They're not like a traditional font that has multiple objects making up the letter. Like an E would normally have one at the top, one at the bottom, one around the center, and then a satin stitch going down the side. And all of these stitch directions are dictated by the satin stitches. Because these are Flexi-Fills, they actually only go in one direction, which means that you can modify and manipulate them with a lot more ease. So I'm going to choose the Varsity Flexi-Fill, and I'm going to type in 2 letters which are going to be EL for Embroidery Legacy. Now the first thing I want to do is resize this. I'm going to actually make it, let's say, 2.65, because I'm going to run this on a flat surface, but I think I'm going to do another video and show how it looks on a cap as well. And if I want to make any modifications to this at this point, I would want to select that, hit the H key, and I can then move my letters over and change them and position them however I want. So once I have them in place, then I'm going to select the entire object and I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to change the color, and then I'll select it and I'll duplicate it again and I'll change the color. So I have 3 different EL files all with different colors. And now I can go in and I can manipulate each one of those independently. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the applique, but I'm going to modify it after the fact and start changing all of the object orders, because I want to do a an outline stitch which shows me where to place my applique. Then I want to do my tack down stitch, hold it in place, but then I want to do all of my other creative effects like my faux chenille, and then do the foam last. So I'm going to have to resequence these objects so that it all works perfectly. So I'm going to take that object right now and I'm going to go to my applique feature, and I can see that convert to applique is grayed out. That's because right now this is being seen as one object, and I need to break it apart. And if I look at it now, I'll just go to colors, it is still highlighted with break apart, so I'm going to break it apart one more time. Once you've broken an object that is an ESA file apart as many times as it can be broken, then it actually grays out when it's highlighted. And you notice that the convert to applique now appears. Now before I tell it to convert to appliques, I'm going to go from US to metric, because I like to think in size of design and inches, but I like to do all of the properties in metric. So we're going to switch from US to metric, we're going to highlight that again, and this time I'm going to convert to applique, and it's as easy as that. Now once I have that object highlighted again, I have both of these highlighted, I want to make sure they're both selected. Now I can go in and I can basically tell it that I want to pre-cut, or I want to trim them in place with cutting lines, and I want the stitch length at 2.5 millimeters. I'm going to have a tack down stitch, and I can do either a zigzag or a blanket. So I'm going to do just a zigzag around there. That's fine as far as defaults are concerned. But actually thinking about it, because this is going to go afterwards on a finished hat, and because there might be some movement or misregistration, I'm going to change that zigzag to a single run. That way, if there is a little bit of movement, hopefully you won't see that zigzag pop out anywhere. And then I'm going to go to the satin stitch, and I'm going to change the properties from 0.4 millimeters, which is regular density, to 0.2 millimeters, which is foam density. So it's going to perforate and cut all the way around. And then I'm going to actually come in here, and I'm going to go in and change this to, let's say, 4 millimeters, and it's going to widen everything up. So that looks actually a little bit better, and I think that should be good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right onto here now that these are all done, and I can see that they are finished. I have the density, I have all of the objects, and because right now it is an applique, I can break those apart afterwards and start resequencing the order. So it doesn't get too confusing. I'm going to leave that till a little bit later on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to create my faux chenille effect, which this should be pretty easy to do. and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab that object and I'm going to break it apart, and I'm going to again come in here and break it apart even more so it's completely broken apart, and now I can go in and I can put in that desired effect. So now we're going to easily add in that faux chenille effect, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab both of those objects together at the same time, and I'm just going to go to my fills, so I can either choose outlines or fills. I'm going to go to the fills, and if I scroll down, I can see that I have a stipple stem stitch, and when I click on stipple stem, it gives me a bunch of settings. So I'm going to start playing with these and see what I can achieve. So I'm going to change this to a little bit longer. Let's do a 3.5 millimeter stitch length, so it's going to be a longer stitch length. I'm going to keep the angle at, let's say, 50 degrees, and I'm going to come over here and let's change the loop spacing to try 2.5. So there I can see that it's already starting to give me a different effect. Now I'm going to bring it down to the last color so I can see how much it's overlapping, and that way I can get an idea. Let's just zoom into full screen. I can get an idea of how much coverage there's going to be there. So as I start playing with all of these values, I can see that if I adjust the spacing from 1.5 to 1 millimeter, let's just backspace there, hit enter, I can see now that I have much more density, and then if I turn this into a triple stitch, I can see that it's added even more density there. Now I think that probably looks almost pretty good, but I can keep playing a little bit. Let's just try that at 2 millimeters, hit the enter, and that even looks a little bit better as far as the spacing is concerned. And the thickness, I think that I'll just drag that all the way up as far as it will go, so that's going to make it a little bit thicker all the way around, and that's actually looking pretty good. Now that I know that it's all in the right place, now I can bring that back in the sewing order right where it should be. Now if I look at these objects, I'm not even going to need the first one, so let's get rid of that green altogether. Now is when I can come in and start breaking apart these objects. So let's break this apart, and then I can see that it's broken apart into a whole bunch of different objects here. So I basically have the first object. Let's just go over here. There's the first object. That would be my outline. This would be my tack down, and that would be my third stitch right there. That would be another tack down. I really don't need that one, so I'm going to get rid of these right here. Let's get rid of that one, and let's delete. So I'm going to delete that one, and then I'm going to come here. Let's get rid of that blank space as well. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to do essentially the same thing. Let's get rid of all three of these objects right here, and I'm going to undo that, make sure that I get rid of them. So let's get rid of this one right here and this one right here, and let's get rid of that one right there. So now I have those objects, and then I'm going to move these two up in the order so that they are going to be essentially first. So that's going to put my design in place, and it's going to give me a outline stitch of where I'm going to put my applique. So that's going to be the first step. Then I need to look at these two right here, and I'm going to put these two in order, and now I'm going to put them, because this is my tack down, I'm going to put them up into place next. So now I have my tack down stitch, which is only a single run. Then it's going to do my faux chenille after my applique is in place. So I like those two. And then it's going to come back and it's going to do the E and the L. And this is where I can come in and I can start adjusting some of the properties so that it's going to be friendly for foam. Because if I look at these properties right here, I want to look, number one, at the I know that the density is okay because I already changed that to 0.2, but I want to look at the underlay, and I'm going to basically set the underlay so it is going to be not a tatami underlay, but an edge run underlay. So let's just do edge run there, and now I know I have an edge run underlay, and I'm going to change the pull compensation from 0.17 to 0.25. So essentially I have increased the pull compensation and made it a little bit wider. I have taken that edge run underlay and I'm going to change it from 2.2 millimeters to 1 millimeter so that it helps to perforate the actual foam. So now I'm going to put that one in place right there. So now I know that my underlays are fine, but I'm not done yet. I have one more step to do. I'm going to actually take this color right here, and if I look at these ones, let's just look at these two right here. These are falling in the center. These are to the outside a little bit. So there we have these two here. So there's that one, and then I have this one here. they are right on top of each other, which is kind of not necessarily a great thing as far as I'm concerned, but it should work okay. It gives me enough, room to trim because it is a 4mm stitch. But now I'm going to take that and I'm going to take those two and I'm going to duplicate them as well. And they're going to go to the very end of the sewing order, but I'm going to move them up right after the chenille, so that I have now a stitch right here, which is an outline stitch, but instead of having it at 3mm, I'm going to change it to 6mm. It's going to be really, really long because I need something to hold down that foam before it starts to sew. Now that it is being held down in place, I know that it can then go in, and I'll change those colors, and now I know that it's going to go in, hold it in place, and then continue on sewing. So if I look at this right now, I have my outline stitch that is going into place. I can see it stitching right there, and it's going to give me the outlines for both of these objects. Then it's giving me my tack down stitch, which is going to hold that applique. Then I can basically do all of the faux chenille over top of it, so it's going to do all of that really cool faux chenille on top of the applique, and then it's going to do the finishing stitch, but it tacks it down first with a longer stitch, then it cuts it out with a shorter stitch, and then it does the rest of the foam all the way around. So this should be a foam friendly design that's going to look unique. It's going to have lots of dimension, lots of effect, and when we pull it away, you're going to be surprised because the proof is always in the stitching. Just want to thank you for watching. Please hit that like button, and we appreciate it if you subscribe. It really helps us out. But here is our design, and it has an applique with faux chenille 3D foam. I think it looks awesome, and we'll see you next time.